Hello, today's recording is from Algebra 1, Chapter 1, Lesson 6, and I'd like to start off today's recording with a quote. Quote comes from Horseradish, Bitter Truths You Can't Avoid by Lemony Snicket, page 16. It is always sad when someone leaves home, unless they are simply going around the corner and will return in a few minutes with an ice cream sandwich. Alright, on to some math. Just a quick review. Real numbers. Real numbers include natural numbers, whole numbers, integers, rational numbers, and irrational numbers. Natural numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Whole numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Integers are whole numbers and their opposites, so negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, so on. You get it. Rational numbers are anything that can be written as a fraction. 4, for example, can be written as 4 over 1, and 5.3 can be written as 5 and 3/10. And then irrational numbers are numbers that, as a decimal, don't repeat and don't end, much like pi. Right there, little pi. He's cute, he's blue. That's pi. Alright, next up we have the identity property of multiplication. Just means whenever you multiply something by 1, it stays the same. So 3 times 1 is 3, x times 1 is x. Yes, there is a property for that. Silly but true, but just wait till we get to the next two. Alright, so the multiplication property of 0 says anything multiplied by 0 is 0. X times 0 is 0, 3 times 0 is 0. And then the multiplication property of negative 1 means that when you multiply by negative 1, you're going to get the opposite of what you multiplied negative by 1 by. So 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. 3 and negative 3 are opposites. X times negative 1 is negative x. X and negative x are opposites. Alright, just a quick review. A negative times a negative is a positive. A positive times a positive is a positive. A negative times a positive is a negative. And a positive times a negative is also a negative. So here's the short and sweet. If it's the same sign, the answer is positive. If the signs are different, the answer is negative. And this same thing works for division, but we'll get to division in just a minute. Alright, so multiplication, we've got 4 times 6, the signs are different, therefore my answer is going to be negative. Oh, I'll get there in a second. The answer will show up eventually. Oh, well, I don't think it is. Okay, so 4 times negative 6 is going to give you negative 24. I hope you know that. Negative 24. There we go. Signs are different, therefore negative answer. Okay. Number 2, we had negative 2/3 times 3/4. So here's a quick reminder on multiplying fractions. Simplify before you multiply. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 3 once. That's what that was. Right. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 3 once. So it simplifies to 1. And 2 goes into itself once, and 2 goes into itself twice. So now we're just going to end up with negative 1 times 1. And 1 times 2, which is going to give us negative 1/2. And that's so you can simplify before you multiply. It's very tricky to do it that way, but totally handy and saves you some time. Alright, next up, expressions. Just remember, things get a little crazy when you have a letter next to a letter. It means multiplication. So there actually is an invisible little multiplication sign in there, and I can just barely make it in there, but it's that orange dot right there. So if C is negative 8 and D is negative 7, we're going to end up with the opposite. That's what that little negative sign means. The opposite of negative 8 times negative 7. So we have to do things inside the parentheses first. Order of operations. Negative 8 times negative 7 is positive 56 because a negative times a negative is a positive. But because we have that opposite sign in front of it, that negative, it's going to be negative 56. Alright, I'm going to make that negative a little brighter. There we go. Alright, next problem. We have C times negative D. Well, if C is negative 8 and D is negative 7, we have the negative 8 times the opposite of negative 7. Oh, it's getting crazy. Alright, so the opposite of negative 7 is positive 7. Positive 7. A negative times a positive is a negative. Oh, look, it's the exact same answer all over again. Alright, moving on. Alright, exponents, real quick. The big number is the base. The small number is the exponent. Don't ever forget that. The exponent tells us how many times we're going to multiply the base times itself. So the opposite of 3 to the 4th power looks like, oh, there's a lot in there. Let me back up a little. There we go. So the opposite of 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Alright, because we're going to multiply 3 times itself 4 times, because that's what the exponent tells us to do. Well, 3 to the 4th power is 81, and then the opposite of 81 is negative 81. Alright, next problem is negative 0.3 to the 2nd power. Because the exponent affects everything inside of the parentheses, basically we're doing negative 0.3 times itself. Alright, the negative sticks with it. And the problem from the first one, the negative is not affected by the exponent. Alright, whereas here it is affected because it's inside the parentheses with the 0.3. Okay, so it's negative 0.3 times negative 0.3. A negative times a negative is a positive, so we've got positive 0.09 because 0.3 times 0.3 is 0.09. Alright, multiplying fractions, we did a review of that just a minute ago. So in this case, the negative sign is not affected by the exponent, but the things inside the parentheses, in this case 3/4, is affected. So it's the opposite of 3/4 times 3/4. Well, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16. The opposite of 9/16 is negative 9/16. But here's another way you can do it, and this is kind of jumping ahead to, like, I think chapter 7, so just if you don't get the second part, don't worry about it. You can also do this as distributing the exponent to both the numerator and the denominator, 3 to the 2nd power and 4 to the 2nd power. Well, 3 to the 2nd is 9, 4 to the 2nd power is 16. You have the opposite of 9/16, which is negative 9/16. Alright, you guys should at this point know how to stick a letter in for a, stick a number in for a letter. So I'm just going to quickly go through this. If you're having trouble, slow it down and watch the steps. But there we go. And you'll see I made a little mistake. I know, I fixed it. Never mind, it's there. But that's a negative 16 is the answer. So just make sure you understand what I did there as far as those steps are concerned. Alright, inverse property of multiplication. Multiplying a number times its reciprocal. Whenever you multiply a number times its reciprocal, you're gonna get 1. And that's because of multiplying fractions. So if I take this next example, which is 8 times 1/8, well, what is a times 1a over a? What's a as a fraction? Well, that's a over 1. Well, if I say a goes into itself once, and a goes into itself once, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 over 1 is 1. So just remember that when you're multiplying anything times its reciprocal, you're going to get 1. Alright, last slide, promise. Now, here's something kind of nasty. We have a fraction over a fraction. But just remember, the fraction bar is just a fancy way of showing division. So you can really rewrite this problem as a division problem. Negative 3/4 divided by negative 5 over 2. Well, how do I multiply fractions? Well, you're going to multiply by the reciprocal, of course. So then the reciprocal of negative 5 over 2 is 2 over negative 5. 2 goes into itself once. 2 goes into 4 twice. Can't simplify any further, so I'm just going to have to multiply. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. And there we go. And we're going to end up with negative 3/10. But remember, division bar, just a fancy way of doing division. So a negative divided by a negative is a positive, folks. So that's just 3/10. Alright, good luck. See you guys in class tomorrow. Bye!